Hello, everyone. I am just floored by the response to this meeting, and just so excited to hear from all of you. My name is Amy Lutz, and I am the director of AOT implementation at Treatment Advocacy Center. And I am the royal we. I am so excited to see you all, and we have such a great mix of judicial officers today. I'm just going to start with, unfortunately, Brooke, who sent you the emails for this, is out sick, and she's my right hand. We're going to do introductions, and I will type in the chat what I'd like to hear from each of you. But first, Betsy, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Betsy Johnson. I work with Amy and Brooke on the implementation team at the Treatment Advocacy Center. Really excited to see you all here today. Looking forward to a robust discussion.
All right. So, like I said, I'm going to type this in here. What I'm going to go by my screen here, but what I would like to hear from each of you is your name, your jurisdiction, county and state, please, and then where you are in the AOT implementation process. So don't want to go into details, just pre-implementation, newly implemented, or old hat. So thanks, Judge Heller. I'm going to start with Judge D'Antonio.
I'm sorry, I'm on the phone.
Oh,
I'll be.
No worries. I'm going to start with Commissioner Swingen.
Hello, everyone. My name is Amy Swingen, and I am with Clark County Superior Court in Clark County, Washington, as distinguished from Clark County, Nevada. And we are just new to the AOT process. We're just launching this month.
Oh, that's great. All right, Magistrate Doggett. And by the way, I'm just going to default to judge because I don't know what y'all are. So.
Hi, my name is Brittany Doggett. I'm a magistrate with the Montgomery County Probate Court in Montgomery County, Ohio. My judge is actually on a 3-day trial, so he can't be here. But we technically have our AOT started, but we're waiting for the referrals from the hospital. So we're just kind of in that process right now, waiting for them to give us our first referral.
Magistrate Worthington.
Good afternoon. My name is Heather Worthington. I'm a magistrate with the Franklin County Probate Court based out of Columbus, Ohio. I've been with the court since 2012, and I run the outpatient civil commitment docket. So we have AOT in Franklin County. It is small compared to other programs. We have an ACT team we just added 2 additional respondents, so we're now back up to 26. It's a big county, but the 24 that I've had on AOT for years have been very successful.
Excellent. Now, I forgot to add something, and that is, if you are new to AOT, I want you to know we have some, I was going to call them old timers, but they're not old, but experienced folks who've been doing this for quite some time. So if you have any questions for them, if you just share those during the introduction, and we'll get to those later. All right, back. Judge Hemstreet.
Hi, I'm Judge Melissa Hemstreet, and I am from Kitsap County, Washington, and we are, I guess, pre-implementation, still discussing kind of how this is going to look for us. One of the questions I had for today is how much judicial involvement each of your programs have? How often do you see the participants?
That's a great question. Judge Carey.
Hi, I'm Richard Carey, the judge in Clark County, Ohio. So I'm between Franklin County and Montgomery County, a little bit smaller. We do an outpatient treatment program, but we don't have a formal AOT program in place. We've been just kind of looking at it and still kind of looking at it, kind of waiting for a couple of the parties to show that they're ready to move forward. So I'm just participating just to see what everybody has to say. Thank you.
Judge Heiser.
Good afternoon. I'm Larry Heiser. I'm the judge in Marion County, Ohio. We've had an AOT program that's been active for almost 2 years now.
Judge Price.
I'm not a judge, but I am an LCSW. I am a clinician educator at New Vista in Central Kentucky. And we just completed our first AOT this past week, and I will do one next week. So we are just babies and in the very beginning of the learning process with this.
All right. Judge Liu.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am a family court judge in Reno, Nevada. So not Clark County, Nevada. I've had an AOT program since 2016. So we've been running it pretty well since then. So happy to share any insight. Thanks. I'm an old timer.
Yeah, but not old. Judge Sarber.
Hello, everyone. Matt Sarber, Marshall County, Indiana, which is just south of South Bend, home of the Irish. I am in the planning, preparing stage. I was one of 2 judges asked in Indiana to be a part of this discussion. Neither of us have an AOT program currently, but I handle mental health cases civilly, and then on the criminal side, I handle criminal cases. And in that avenue, I'm a problem-solving court judge, which is drug court oriented.
Thank you for being here. I just got out of a meeting with Judge Fish.
Well, great to have him.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Judge Burnett.
I am the probate judge in Thomas County, Georgia. I started the AOT program last December. I have 14 respondents, so I'm always willing to hear ideas from other judges.
All right. I'm sorry, I'm not going to get this right. Judge Biercall.
That was right, actually. It is Biercall. I am a Superior Court judge in Nevada City, which is in Nevada County, which is not in Nevada. It's in California. Very, very confusing. I am a brand new judge, and so I am attending this not because I am doing anything with our, it's for us, Laura's Law Court. The other judge who is running this does handle this, and as far as I understand, we've had an AOT program since 2008 in Nevada County, but I'm here mostly to learn and hear everything that's going on. So thank you.
So glad to have you here. So you are not Judge Anderson's replacement.
No, I'm not. I am Judge, which we've lost so many judges. Oh, not lost. They retired. I'm sorry, that was the wrong terminology. I replaced Candace Heidelberger.
Okay.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
All right. Judge Roger.
I am the probate juvenile judge in Union County, Ohio. Currently, we do have an AOT program, had it for a while, but we don't have that many cases, so I would consider us still new, even though we've had the program in place for a while. Most of our cases start out in Franklin County, which is Columbus, because they go to Twin Valley. So that's where we are. So,
Judge Dobrich.
Hi, I'm a retired probate judge in Michigan, and I'm now project director of the Michigan Judicial Council, and we have a work group working on AOT, and I'm just interested in what other jurisdictions are doing.
Glad to have you here. Glad to have you all here, by the way, but it's rare that we have someone from Michigan, so really glad to see you. Judge Neat. Judge Neat? Oh.
I'm not a judge. I'm a CQI specialist here at Frankfort, Kentucky with AOC Specialty Courts, and I'm taking notes for our implementation science team here so we can start learning for mental health.
All right. Judge Williams.
Oops. I think you meant me. I'm Wendy
Williamson. I couldn't see the whole Williamson in there.
That's okay. I'm a probate associate judge, Chatham County, Savannah, Georgia. We are Judge D'Antonio's groupies, and we are new and learning.
Well, I was so excited to hear that Georgia brought you on board after a year. So
we are very hopeful.
Excellent, excellent. Judge Brown.
I am actually not a judge either. I am an LCSW also in Lexington, Central Kentucky region. And the Louisville region of our state has been doing AOT for a while, but we just recently started. And as Kristen Price said earlier, we just did our first one this week, and we're going to be doing our second one next week. But mainly here to listen and learn so that we can do the process as well as all the experienced folk.
Judge Irick.
Hi there, sorry about that. It's Erig, and yes, I'm also from the Chatham County Probate Court with Judge Williamson. I'm the staff attorney here, but I also serve as a judge pro tempore, and so I preside over the civil commitment hearings and issue orders to apprehend. And we don't have a formalized AOT program right now. We are looking and hoping that that is going to be the case.
Excellent. Well, you have a good mentor. Judge Donahue.
Hi, I am in King County, Seattle, Washington. I am new to I just rotated into our involuntary civil commitment court. So I've been here all of 9 days. So I'm still learning quite a bit. We do have Washington State statute encouraging us to use AOT, but we have been unable to find any providers who will follow the program. So we're still in discussions about how to get it off the ground. And so I wanted to join this conversation to see if what the rest of you are doing and see if it sparks any ideas to move us forward.
Excellent. So just so you are all aware, this is supposed to be a closed group of for the judiciary, and I try very hard to cancel any registrations from people who are not in the judiciary, but apparently I did not do a good job of doing that this time. But this time is for you to ask questions of each other, not time for treatment providers to ask questions of you. I just wanted to get the ground rules out there. unfortunately, we were supposed to have Judge Prashner from Austin, Texas join us, and it doesn't look like he's been able to make it. But the question we asked him to address is HIPAA concerns. Many of the programs we work with really struggle with sharing information with the court for someone who's not necessarily in imminent danger of harm to their self or others, but still would benefit and still meets the criteria for involuntary outpatient commitment. And the reason we asked Judge Prashner is because his solution in his jurisdiction is that he has entered a blanket order requiring all treatment providers to share information with the court regarding any petitions for AOT. Betsy, that's correct, right?
Yes. Yep.
So I'm just curious how you all manage sharing, or if it's not even a problem in your court. And I will say, I'm a former treatment provider who worked in a county who had involuntary commitment, never even thought about whether it was barred by HIPAA to share information with the court, because to me, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Can you say that again? Can you say that again? A blanket order to do what? I'm cutting out, so.
Involuntary commitment.
So basically, it's an administrative order that basically requires mental health providers in the community to, if they believe that somebody meets criteria for either civil commitment or court-ordered outpatient treatment, AOT specifically, that they are required basically to share that information with the court. And the purpose is to address the concern that providers have that somebody who is not voluntarily willing to go into the AOT program is not going to sign a release of information. So they're reluctant to make a referral or to complete the paperwork and submit it to the court, even though they believe they meet all the criteria under the law. Because under HIPAA, unless that person is in imminent danger, they say that they can't share that information with the court. So what they've done in Travis County, Texas, is they have this blanket administrative order that basically instructs providers to share their information.
Do you have a copy of that order?
I sure do. Well,
can you share that?
Absolutely. So it comes up oftentimes when the person is living in the community and they have all the information that they need to make the case to the court, but they don't have a signed release of information. So they believe that this administrative order sort of protects everybody from a HIPAA violation. So that's how they're handling it there. But other areas, it's not an issue where the provider feels comfortable sharing that information. So just curious if others are running into this and if you have a different way that you're addressing it.
Well, I'll chime in on a couple of things. We do have a statute that I cite to that allows providers to share information with each other. But say someone going from a hospital to an outpatient provider, or an outpatient provider going to a hospital. And Wendy or Vicky, call me if I'm wrong on it, but it's 37-3-166. We do, to the extent that my longer goal is to try to have better communication among different classes of courts so that we can sometimes work with individuals that might have criminal charges, or where there might be some people moving from mental health court, which is more of an accountability court, to an AOT program. We're talking about trying to come up with some kind of universal release so that if somebody signs a release for when they're in a district with any one of our providers within, I'm sorry, with any one of our providers within Muskogee County, whether it be like all of the folks that really would be, I guess, stakeholders, so that we could communicate with each other. I've also had some situations where I had individuals that were in the hospital, and in that situation, we were looking for housing placements, and the individual was sometimes reluctant to sign a HIPAA release so that they could really help facilitate housing. What I've done in court hearings is I've had the folks bring the releases with them, and then we'll take a break from the hearing, and I'll let the attorney that's representing that individual sit with the individual, explain every single word over as many times as necessary about what that release means, make it really clear that it's going to be limited to that one place. And don't you want to get out of the hospital? And doesn't that seem like a nice place to live, kind of thing, to sort of persuade that individual that they may want to sign that release. But I'm also interested in seeing the blanket order. And as I said, I help facilitate providers for individuals that are subject to my jurisdiction to share records, and we have a pretty good working relationship with some of the folks at the Department of Behavioral Health. So if I have real big pushback, I sometimes will call on some of those folks to help the other provider that might be receiving funding from the BHDD, that they are allowed to share those records. The other thing I like to point out to people about HIPAA, when I used to do a presentation about HIPAA and Viagra, is that there's no private right of action, right? I mean, so what are y'all worried about? No, I mean, of course, I'm being a little bit sarcastic about that. I mean, obviously, they can file complaints with the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Office of Civil Rights, and I think egregious things do get fined and things like that. But I kind of think that lawyers have gotten over on doctors a little bit about how they get them so worked up and afraid of HIPAA. And that's about all I have to say. Please chime in if anything I said is wrong.
I just want to say, because we have a lot of issues in our county with HIPAA, just because our providers, everything, when we were like trying to get things going with AOT, it was always, HIPAA. We actually they had a grant with SAMHSA for something related for our ADAMIS board, where we had a presenter come in. And that made a huge difference, because the person's like, a lot of things that you think are covered by HIPAA really aren't. So that actually, the education component, I think really did make a difference in that case, because we had been pushing, we're like, look, you can use the court because information we have is not HIPAA protected because we're a court. And they're like, no. And then the person came on and immediately said, yeah, court information is not HIPAA protected because they're not a provider. And suddenly it was a change of mind in that. But we do have a court order for release of information if we have issues for trying to get information between providers, which technically was language from a hospital's, their legal department actually had crafted language, and we just stole it from them.
Magistrate Doug, it'd be great if I could get a copy of that, and then we'll send that out to all of you along with that administrative order that they're using in Travis County, Texas.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and get that one. I think it's an appropriate placements, one of ours, and then I think the other one may just be information between parties, but I'll get you copies of those.
I was going to plead my ignorance here, but I had a specific question about the order that was shared. Paragraph 3 says that this excludes any substance use disorder information. Could you provide the rationale, if you know, for that? Just because in our jurisdiction, many times these are ongoing issues with mental health and substance use. So those are almost always intertwined for me. So That was my question.
And it is because substance use disorder information is more highly protected than mental health information.
That here, everything is we have this, and I think Larry Heller actually put it in, the 42 CFR Part 2 is kind of a wall against all of that information.
And you're absolutely right that the people, a good number, probably at least half the people that are served on AOT do have co-occurring disorders. But really of most importance to the court in terms of whether someone meets the statutory criteria is that they have a mental illness. It's really important to know once they're in the program that, and once you're seeing them, once they're under the order, it's good information to have, but you don't need to know that to have an involuntary treatment order. They just have to be mentally ill.
And if I recall, you still can enter in findings of facts specific to the need for that substance abuse information and things like that. Wearing an old DFACS hat, we would have show cause hearings related to those things prior to the hearing on whether the child was in a dependent situation or not. So that's been, but I really haven't had a problem with that, and I'm not as worried about the substance abuse stuff, but it is out there. I also use HIPAA and other privacy rights for a blanket order I put in to make sure that the information that goes on in my court hearings doesn't actually accidentally get disseminated by, say, my sheriff. I had an incident, gosh, it was pre-COVID, where an individual got very, very, very upset during a hearing and tried to attack my former associate judge. Next thing you know, it was on some local television show called Caught on Body Cam.
Oh.
And again, we're talking among judges, right? So I issued, and well, after that, I always have this blanket order there that says dissemination without court approval will subject you to contempt sanctions. I cite to every kind of privacy thing I can think of. And I specifically put people on notice, including the sheriff, that they could be subject to contempt if anything comes out of my court without prior permission. In that specific case, it was on a weekend, and I got a prior restraint order from a DC law firm later on, but I directed the sheriff to start taking down the WTVM, the television station's hard drives, until that came down. And they listened after a little while. I don't recommend y'all doing that, but since we were talking about this issue, I mean, I wanted that. It was really not fair to this individual that was in crisis that should have been up there at all. It was only on their website, but that was at 11 o'clock at night, there was a sheriff knocking on the television station saying, "We're here to take your computers." But don't do that. I just want to let you know I have, though. I don't know. That's why now maybe Wendy and Amy and Vicky don't see me quite as but anyway, throw that out there too. And if you guys tell me if I'm wrong, please.
Anything else on HIPAA that anyone wants to share, or any workarounds? Great. I know one of the questions that was raised earlier was how much, and I know this is an important question for judges who are kind of in the early stages of considering AOT, but if we could talk maybe a little bit about how much court time this takes for some of you who have been at this for a while. I think that might be really helpful for some of the new folks in the meeting.
What was the question, Betsy?
How much court time does AOT take? How much time are you spending in your docket with your AOT participants?
So in Franklin County, Ohio, we have 1.5, well, I guess a rough estimate of head count of citizens. And I put aside 3 Monday afternoons a month. The first Monday afternoon is not AOT, but every other Monday afternoon, that's my AOT docket. And then if there's emergencies, they know that we can do an emergency telephone care conference. We can do an emergency in person. So just because the program's been so successful in Columbus, Ohio, I'm willing to do an emergency whenever they need it. But court time, Monday afternoons, 3 Mondays a month.
And that's for how many? 25?
26. And I see every respondent every 4 to 5 months, more often if needed.
So in my court, I have one afternoon a week, but really it maybe goes from 1 to 2 hours. And that also includes a half-hour staffing before we start the court docket. Our maximum is 50 participants. Right now we have about 32. I see them on average about once a month. Sometimes some come in weekly, depending on if they're having some crisis issues. Sometimes, you know, it's traumatic for some of them to come to court. So sometimes I don't even see them until I repetition. So it could be months before they see them again. So we really set our hearings based upon the participants' needs and where they're at and their comfort level. So we don't see them every week, which is why the docket isn't, you know, we try to kind of keep that docket in that time frame, just because I usually have a docket before and a docket after. So it doesn't have to take a lot of time, depending on kind of the needs of your participants and what your AOT team feels is appropriate. So that's just how we've just always done it, because it's really just one part of my caseload during the week.
So do you see people more frequently when they first enter the docket?
Usually, and then we taper off. It really, though, depends on the individual. But I do see them more in the beginning, and then we see how they're doing and how they're gauging after that.
Judge Lou, how much time do you spend with each participant typically?
It depends on the participant, but you know, with specialty courts, you know, they talk about, you know, at least 2 to 3 minutes per person for it to have a quote, you know, the effect. But really it depends on the participant and how they're doing that day. So if I have a talkative participant, it could be, you know, 10 minutes. I mean, it's a review hearing. It's not, you know, we're not going through over everything. For others, it may be a few minutes because that's all they can kind of handle that day because of their anxiety level. So it really varies, but they're not, I mean, the most lengthiest hearings are really the petition hearings when we're admitting them into the program, which is still only about 10 to 12 minutes. So it's not a huge amount of time.
We would typically schedule someone on an emergency sort of basis, very short notice when they're being discharged from the hospital, so that we can get some contact established and start to work with them. Following that, we schedule one afternoon a month. It actually doesn't take anywhere near the whole afternoon. An hour to 2 hours is what we would typically do. And I would expect that we spend between 5 and 15 minutes with each of the participants.
Others?
I have a state hospital, a private crisis stabilization unit, and 2 outpatient providers all in my county. So what I generally do is I block off 1 day a week for whichever providers want to have hearings that day. Obviously, if somebody's in a hospital under Georgia law, there's very quick timelines about them having their hearings if they're going to stay longer. So I basically have a designated time for West Central Georgia Regional Hospital, a designated time for the Crisis Stabilization Unit, the Bradley Center, and then my afternoons on those days are devoted to the 2 outpatient providers. And I, like Judge Lou said, it really depends on the individual how much time we're going to spend. And I tend to talk too much, I guess. A hearing on a petition's going to last probably, depends on the individual, but if it's going to be a contested one, it's going to probably take an hour. I mean, I'm going to let them, I'm always going to let the individual talk as much as they want to talk unless I think I'm making things worse. So my designated day is Thursday. Today I had one status review that went not very well, that took about an hour or so, and this was someone that was decomping pretty badly. But so as I said, it can be flexible. It's by saying that I designate a day a week, that doesn't mean that I'm in some days I'm in court the whole day, but other times it really can be, we have some quick oh, I'm so glad you're doing well, and although I actually just leave it up to the providers as to when we want to have status reviews or when they want to see. I've been encouraged, in light of my conversations with the Treatment Advocacy Center, I have encouraged the providers, if they want to set up something less formal, like it sounds like a lot of you all do, I'm open to that as well, but it really hasn't come to fruition.
We're frequently asked if attorneys are necessary when you're doing those check-ins in between the formal hearings. And some programs insist that the attorneys need to be there, and many others do not. Some start out with attorneys present, and then eventually they come to the conclusion that the attorneys really don't add much to the discussion, and they dismiss them. Just curious if folks have strong feelings on that one way or the other.
I'm talking too much. If I'm going to be modifying an order or interfering with somebody's rights, I think they have to have an attorney to represent them.
I think Judge D'Antonio is correct. We separate our outpatient commitment care conferences from the adjusting outpatient civil commitment orders at Franklin County. So I have almost like a pseudo legal role, a ceremonial role, but they don't know that. Nothing's recorded, no rights are written or read onto there's no record. It's just a conversation that I have with the respondents, and we develop a relationship. If their orders of commitment are going to change, it's going to be with one of our 4 special magistrates out at the mental hospital.
And I'll say, I think it was actually because of our discussion with Magistrate Worthington, because she talked to us in our development of our AOT program, is that we have different names for and it's in our rules that if you're at the conferences, there is nothing that's going to occur with any of your orders. So if you have a status hearing or then that might be something where we're going to possibly change the orders, and an attorney is required at all of those. But the conference itself does not require an attorney because of that.
Yeah, at our care conferences, I'm not touching anyone's rights. I might threaten them a little or encourage them a little, but no rights are touched.
And are those the care conferences held in the courtroom with you at the
They're
event?
held wherever the ACT team wants them. If they want them in the courtroom, they're in the courtroom. If they want them on Zoom, they're on Zoom. For certain respondents that are very independent, the ACT team will be at their offices and that respondent will show up on their own from their apartment. So it's wherever they want them. And our ACT team schedules the care conferences whenever they need them. I don't schedule them. They reach out. They know they've got Monday afternoons and they schedule them when necessary. So I see them as often as their team wants me to see them. And our care conferences can last anywhere from 5 minutes to 40 minutes. So, and I've got one coming in person in February, and then we're going to go out to eat afterwards. It just really depends on what they want and what they think is going to ensure that success with the program.
May I ask you a question about that? For your care conferences, you basically are relying on ACT to get it scheduled.
Mm-hmm.
How do they communicate to you what the purpose and need of that particular care conference is?
So we have a position, and I believe it's a state-funded position at Twin Valley Behavioral Health, and we call them probate monitors. And they work with all the mental health providers in Franklin County, including CSN and Southeast. But so these probate court monitors, they provide me a report before each care conference that's requested. And they tell me a little bit about what's going on. I already know the diagnosis. They tell me a little bit about how they think the care conference should go, whether I need to remind them of certain things, that they're out in the community getting their treatment where they belong. You know, you need to do this to stay out there. You're part of this team, do your part. I don't want you back in the hospital. Or they tell me to praise them for what's happening. And I take notes on everything so we can always pick up where we left off.
How are you dealing with the ethics part of that, of taking him to dinner and things like that, when there might be an attorney involved, but he's not there?
So I'm not taking anybody to dinner, but I am going to meet the respondent who's requested that their social worker on their ACT team, that we're going to go and sit down and everyone's going to eat the Middle Eastern food that he wants to eat.
I would say that's the first time I've heard the out to eat intervention. That's a good one. That's a good one.
He's been very successful, and he loves Middle Eastern food, and he's asked a few times. So I'm going to meet them after our care conference, and we're going to have some hummus.
I've offered a pizza recently to somebody.
I've heard of programs offering candy and other types of, I guess you could call them bribes. I'm not paying for anyone's dinner, but I'll definitely eat with him and encourage him and the social worker, the ACT team.
And there's been one individual, in sort of trying to build a rapport with the individual, I had asked, when was the last time you saw a movie? And I don't know, again, if my ethics are questionable or whatever. It's been a long time, and he agreed to go get his shot and so I did buy movie passes for him and his mother.
I love that. So part of my care conference, I always ask them if they need anything. And generally it's no, but I have sent cooking magazines, I've sent books, and it's everything I buy with my own money. I mean, we're not talking a lot of money. If they need something small and trivial, I've sent school supplies, a backpack. If it's going to build that relationship and that trust, I'll do it.
I took my associate judge's space heater and gave it to an individual. Well, I told him I'd buy him a new one. But again, it goes to what y'all are saying about trying to build rapport with folks.
We actually have that built into our budget. So we can,
I think that's lovely. My judge is not responsible or not responding to those requests.
Yeah,
so I just pay for it. I pay for it for years.
Right. But we do have that so we can buy small things, phone cards, so people can use their phones.
Yeah, and I follow up every single care conference with a handwritten note. Every time. And I'll send them a note and I ask them if it's okay. May I send you a card and I've never had someone tell me no. And some of them keep those notes. And some of them have sent me notes, which sometimes look like ransom notes, but they're very sweet.
There's another judge who's not with us today, but when somebody doesn't show up to court, he'll send them a note saying, I really missed you in court today. I look forward to seeing you next time. And that makes a big difference, I think.
We also have a judge who went to the person's house and sat outside the window and talked with him through the window because he would not come in, which I thought was really above and beyond. Never heard of that as well. But
that's interesting. I've had a social worker go to someone's house with me on the speakerphone to talk to somebody, but not in person.
But it really speaks to the name of the game here, and that is relationships. This work really is about building relationships. What other questions do some of you newbies have for the experienced ones?
Well, I'll just throw this one out there because this is a question I've gotten from some newer judges asking if we had sort of a script for new judges who, you know, didn't really, in terms of some questions that judges may ask at the outset that gets people, you know, responsive, that it gets them engaged. And they were just asking for any suggestions that we might have. So I'm just going to throw that out to the group if you have.
Betsy, I've got a script and I've shared it before. Have I sent it to you?
No, I'd love to see it.
So I have a script and I use it every time, obviously dependent on the circumstances. But one of the things, and I'm sure I took it from somebody else who already created it. When we did our program, I did lots of research. Every time someone comes through for our care conference, we start by reminding them they're under a court-ordered involuntary civil commitment, and they must make these 3 promises for us to continue, and it's honesty, attendance, and medication. So with my respondents and their success rate, they know HAM, they know honesty, attendance, medication, but I'll send that to you, Betsy.
Awesome, thank you. Yep, so it's probably out of the handbook of Judge Kazin out of San Antonio, Texas. That's.
I don't think it's from Texas. Maybe from Pennsylvania. Someone on Pennsylvania.
Unfortunately, not Pennsylvania. They don't have any AOT programs. But
okay.
We're on them.
I would love that script, please. If I could please get that, that would be awesome. Since
yeah,
I'm also trying to put together. I've been asked to put together a formal programming, like what our incentives are and where I've been doing civil commitments, I don't know, 15, 20 years, a very long time. This is a very different thing for me, although I do think it fits very well with my skill sets, but something more formal than what I've always kind of done, but setting out like, all right, for the first missed court date, you get a note. The second missed court date, you know, what we do in terms of and how to be fair in terms of lining up. We have these incentives. We have a budget for incentives. So how to make that fair and consistent. And I haven't done that kind of thing before.
Well, I'm so afraid to speak in front of this group because I'm such a newbie. I know that Amy, my partner here, has talked about doing a group education with all our partners in this. Has anybody done that? Who did you bring into the training? And is there anything that could be shared with us about how to start the process of involving and investing our partners in the baby steps that we're taking for AOT?
We're just doing that now too. We have hired, one of our primary providers has hired an AOT coordinator, and the court has hired an AOT coordinator. And that's exactly the step that we're on too, is that bringing in our community community partners. We have standard set forms. We have a plan. We have, this is how the filing costs are covered. This is how service costs are covered. This is a plan. We have a protocol lined up, and then we're in the process now of inviting these different, but we have what they call PAC team, which I think you guys call ACT team, the same kind of thing, these outreach community providers, bringing them in the same space and educating them, bringing in our local hospitals, our hospital directors, so they can also file. We brought in the jail who said, no, thank you. But at least we're trying to bring them in and work with them too. But we're exactly in that same spot. So thank you for that question.
Well, and Wendy, I try to have a quarterly stakeholder meeting.
Ooh.
And I feed them. And I will
You have
use
a
some of
budget?
them. What do you have? Well, and actually for those in Georgia, the clerk, the probate judge is also the clerk, which means sometimes there's a little bit of petty cash lying around for a meal or so if you're inviting the stakeholders. And no, I'm saying stuff here that I will anyway.
I think I need to be your lawyer.
But I mean, what we do, we invite actually again the executive, the people from DBHDD. We invite the hospitals. The executive directors from the hospitals or other folks like that. The players for the assisted outpatient treatment program. In terms of New Horizons Behavioral Health, American Work Act team. I usually have a little bit of an agenda with maybe one of the learning things was, you don't have to worry about HIPAA. You have to notify the personal representatives at this hearing, maybe I'll have like one little thing like that. And then we sort of have a free discussion about what we can do in terms of taking steps to keep moving forward, or if there's been a particular breakdown. We don't necessarily all agree about it. But I think, to be honest with you, just breaking bread with folks, so to speak, on a quarterly basis makes us easier to pick up the phone to any one of those individuals if we're having a problem that we need to sort of work through. We don't always agree, but at least by doing that, we all can be professional and we know who we are and we know what we're dealing with. And I think that takes you a long way. Haven't gotten the sheriff to show up, but other than that.
So go ahead.
I'll say we're still in the early stages, so we're not quite to the actual meeting. We're still a steering committee at this point is what we have for the AOT steering committee, but that's what we have. We do have the sheriff, amazingly, because they run our jail. So we have the sheriff, we have all of the treatment providers, we have all of the hospitals send in representatives, and it's run by our Adamus board, which handles the mental health right now. But we've had a couple of meetings for that. That was kind of how we set everything, so everyone would be on the same page, what forms to work or use, things that we thought would work and things we wouldn't, and that's how we built our program. We have another meeting, I think at the very beginning of February, because we're just still waiting for someone to be referred from the hospitals who unfortunately just had individuals who didn't meet our criteria, which surprised me. But that steering committee kind of helped set everything up for us, and it got the buy-in from the treatment providers because they basically said, we can do this or we can't do that. And so we took all of those into consideration.
We have meetings every other month with our stakeholders. The district attorney attends, public defender. They're always at every one of our dockets, even for review hearings. We also have the sheriff's office attend because we continue to have those warm handoffs from the jail. We usually don't have the private hospitals attend, and our AOT supervisor actually will go out to the hospitals and present on AOT and provide the information, the referral form. So she actively goes out in the community. But we do have those every other month for the stakeholders that we generally have to interact with all the time, including our MOST team. So I think Larry mentioned he was on the MOST team. So we love our MOST team. We partner with them because they're another eyes for us in the community for our participants. So I'm a big MOST team fan. So.
Thank you, Magistrate. I was just say thank you, Magistrate Worthington. I just uploaded the script. So if anybody wants to download
I left it in
that.
Word so you can do what you want with it.
Thank you very much.
I just want to mention you guys are doing a great job of outlining your quarterly or more frequent meetings, which we strongly advise you do. The one participant, though, I haven't heard mentioned, so I just want to throw it out there. If you've got a strong NAMI affiliate, we really encourage you to include them in your meetings.
And I will say, as a technical assistance provider, having worked with many programs, those programs that struggle are the ones that don't have a robust stakeholder meeting. Not everybody's on the same page. So if people are not all rowing in the same direction, it makes it very difficult to make this work. I put our white paper also in the chat. If you are interested in that, it's a step-by-step how to implement AOT. And it's almost 3 o'clock. I wanted to welcome Judge Prashner. Judge, we mentioned the blanket order, and I was wondering if anybody had any questions for Judge Prashner.
Amy, did you put the blanket order in the chat? I know you've got a copy of it.
Yep, I did, but you
Okay,
can
good.
only see the chat from when you've joined.
Okay, good.
That's a problem with Zoom, but yeah, it was in, yeah, everybody should have it.
Well, the idea was to, to get around people's HIPAA fears on the front end, when it's most vital that whoever's doing this for you have access to medical records, whoever's filing at the county attorney or whomever. And that's where the problem usually is, because of course, in the judge's own order, once you order someone in, you can order that protected health information be shared with anyone you choose. And HIPAA says specifically, court orders trump everything. Well, we decided in Travis County here in Texas, in Austin, to try to do that on the front end, because that's the tough part, is getting hospital records so that we can decide who's appropriate, how many times they've been committed, whether they meet criteria, all that kind of stuff. So that's what we did. And the county attorney, now brandishes that in front of whatever hospitals are being recalcitrant. And it works like a charm. Your signature, your headline and all that kind of stuff. And it's just amazing how it opens doors. We were very proud of that, as you could tell.
And we pass it around all the time.
Oh, good, good.
And I really like the way you phrased that, the fear of HIPAA, because the reality of HIPAA is that it's not nearly as strict as people perceive. And that the problem is educating providers on what they can and can't do, because they believe that they can't do anything, which is...
Well, I disagree with that. All you have to do is educate providers of the hospitals on one thing, which is we got a court order, Jack, and, come across. That's all they need to know. You're right about the HIPAA business. God, it's like a vampire movie, when someone holds up the cross or something, someone says HIPAA and everyone quails, which is why we did an administrative order, and which is why we have passed it around. I cannot recommend it highly enough.
And your findings about the public interest related to it is how you make those kind of findings, that it can be on a blanket basis? Because I've used to have to do individualized findings in terms of issuing those orders.
I'll all I can say is it works like a charm and no one sued us.
Well, and actually, pretty much, I will say whenever I've dealt with folks that were being recalcitrant, as soon as I gave them a court order, they were all happy and they
Exactly.
didn't
Yeah,
care. But I was kind of worried about on the front end. Well, what findings do I have to enter to show this? So I might steal some of your language.
feel free, don't give us credit. It makes us even happier. And plus we don't get joined in the lawsuit.
Another workaround, if you're reluctant to do the administrative order that I think is being done in a few counties, is the hospital can file the paperwork with all the information completed without the PHI, submit it to the court, and the court reviews, and if it's sufficient, then they order them to provide the PHI.
All right. For those of you who aren't really familiar with what we do here at Treatment Advocacy Center, one thing we're very excited about is that we have a national conference and symposium. Sorry, that's Betsy loves that word. So we have a national AOT symposium. We are hosting it in Annapolis, Maryland, November 7th and 8th. And if anybody has ever been, you mind sharing whether it was worth your while or not?
I thought it was great. You know, the one in San Antonio, you know, aside from the proximity to excellent Tex-Mex, the speakers were great. The psychologist that you guys brought, Mr. Anasignosia, whose name I don't quite remember.
Javier Amador.
Yes. He was fantastic. I learned so much from that. You know, just in terms of how to talk to people in our status conferences, and I can't recommend it highly enough.
The biggest issue was there were so many I wanted to attend. And so like on breakouts, it was almost like I needed 3 people so we could get all of the notes because it was so good.
And actually, that was the first time I learned about LEAP too, and I thought that was very, very helpful. Also, it's really was nice to actually meet people where I was preaching to the converted, so to speak.
I attended the first one in Ohio and it was fantastic. I unfortunately missed the one in Texas, but I'm planning to go to the one in Maryland. It was wonderful. It was great to interact with people. Yeah. And I'm bringing my team. Got the DA, got the PD, and got my AOT supervisor. All 4 of us are going. That's what we did the first time. I insisted that my team go. So my team's going. We're making the DA drive. Just kidding. But we're very excited to attend again. So I already have the commitment from my team to attend. So I hope to see people in person, but I've only had the opportunity on Zoom, and I'm excited to interact with colleagues, get more ideas, bounce off more ideas. You know, you always want to improve your program. So I find the symposium to be invaluable. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I really didn't open it up for you guys to tell us how good we were, but thank you. It's nice to hear every once in a while. And for those of you who are newbies, we are going to be doing a sort of pre-conference beginning AOT team training on the Wednesday before. So the 7th and 8th is Thursday and Friday. Wednesday will be AOT 101. There's if you are not a part of the AOT Learning Network, also encourage you to join that. I wish I wish Brooke were here because she has all the links and all that. But she's not. So she will send a follow-up email and we'll have the links if you are not a member. And let's see. Jay, give you a couple minutes.
Hi, thank you. Sorry I didn't give you a heads up that I just kind of popped in, but hi everyone. I am a graduate student at Fordham. I work with, I do clinical forensic psychology, and I also went to law school before this, and I'm doing a research project on AOT, specifically looking at like the role of the judge and judicial involvement and kind of what it looks like when the people on AOT or on outpatient commitment, if you don't have AOT, what the interactions look like with the court and with the judge. So it's a really short survey that last time we had a judges chat, sent it out with the follow-up email. So hopefully we'll be able to do the same there. I can also drop a link here, but all of your perspectives, I've loved getting to listen to everything you all have to say. It's really interesting to hear the differences across all of the jurisdictions and, you know, what works differently there. And that's really what the project's trying to get at. So anyone who has a couple of minutes to fill that out, it would be incredibly appreciated to see what you have to say. So thank you.
Betsy, closing words?
No, I think we covered all the things we wanted to talk about today. If you do have suggestions for the symposium, we're still tweaking the program. So if you have a topic that you want to make sure gets covered, or a speaker you think would be outstanding and helpful, we're open to suggestions from this group. So thank you all.
We also have is it a breakfast? A meal set aside for judges to meet and network.
We do indeed. Yeah, I believe that's on the first afternoon is set aside for a judges luncheon.
Excellent, excellent. Again, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you sharing your knowledge and being open to asking questions. The other thing is we provide technical assistance. So if you guys have questions, reach out to us, and we are happy to, if we don't know the answer, we'll find someone who does. So, and that's AOT@treatmentadvocacycenter.org. Again, you'll receive an email from Brooke, who will have an information-packed email. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Amy. Thanks, Betsy.
Thank
you. Take care, everyone.